In this segment, we consider the criteria that policymakers, shapers, and analysts should employ in their testing of public policy models. Specifically, research decisions affect outcomes. Being aware of this prior to reading research is important. Perhaps more important is that understanding the choices made by other scholars should influence future research decisions, but should not necessarily limit what is done. Perhaps the most important first question concerns a theory's validity. In other words, does the theoretical model explain what it purports to explain? Naively, the question is, can human behavior A be defined and B be changed? More directly, are there other variables that need to be controlled for? Once the validity of a model is taken into account, the next question concerns the economy of a model. A model should be, in the words of Albert Einstein, made as simple as possible, but not simpler. The question for the researcher is how to prioritize. Now, a rule of thumb is that working memory is 7 plus or minus 2 concepts, and also that if a model is focused on changing the world, there must be something policy related that can be changed in the model. Finally, there is the testability of a model. Specifically, can we, as scientifically minded individuals, validate, modify, or most importantly, reject a model and its findings? Ultimately, all of these must relate to observation, regardless of the methodology being either qualitative or quantitative. A good theory helps us structure our knowledge by organizing information systematically and in a way that allows for us to utilize this information. As brain imaging studies suggest, intelligence and expertise have been related to the efficiency of processing, but not the amount of processing. Thus, organizing information in a way that structures knowledge for our use is key. Furthermore, the theory of human behavior structures our expectations. Classic philosophical questions ask, are humans innately good or bad? And are they cooperative or competitive? Our starting axioms in turn structure our expectations as to what policy should do. With the heuristic quality of research, this criteria is related to organization as a systematic structuring of knowledge and the questions that we ask. Finally, we know that humans are causal creatures, attempting to find order in everything. From our own personal experiences with cloud gazing, we see patterns in the sky. Likewise, psychologists use the Rorschach test to ascertain information on a person's psychological state. In times of great difficulty, finding someone or something to blame has been an important part of a functioning society. For instance, ancient gods might be seen as an attempt to make sense of natural disasters and calamities that befell a society. For policymakers, the three criteria on this slide are highly important. Having predictive models is a key factor to consider. But at the same time, this is the riskiest of all concepts because of the uncertainty in human interactions. Obviously, a model of policy behavior must be relevant, and while it should be generalizable to the case a specific policymaker is considering, being able to consider multiple different cases means not only does the researcher have more impact on more people's lives, but also that the model might reveal information that might be generalized to different policy domains. As a scientist, the three criteria presented on this slide become almost most important because it allows for greater confidence in the findings of a study. First, the reliability of a study is important, especially if it is driving policy and resources being spent on that policy. Ultimately, it is hard to tell how reliable the results are without a replication with more data and cases. Being objective is likewise important because it forces researchers to confront difficult truths and even discard values that do not cohere with reality. This ultimately leads to honest theory that informs but doesn't prejudge. Here, there may be seen the need to clarify the relationship between the values proposed by the policy and actual outcomes by understanding that ultimately humans have biases and preferences for a reason. All of these criteria are important for a scientific method that relies upon presenting methods of data acquisition and analysis in a public manner that in turn allows replication by others. It does so by providing clearly defined and logically consistent concepts and propositions that allow for empirically falsifiable hypotheses to be posited. In other words, concepts and propositions are as general as possible and explicitly address relevant uncertainties. Methods and propositions should be self-consciously subjected to criticism and evaluation by experts, and ultimately, in the words of Paul Sabatier, one needs to be clear enough to be proven wrong. Ultimately, policy researchers should be aware and capable of applying several different theoretical perspectives. The reasons for this are multiple. First, knowledge of different perspectives forces the analyst to clarify differences and assumptions across the frameworks that are used. Second, multiple perspectives encourage the development and testing of competing hypotheses. This in turn allows for strong inferences to be drawn. Third, the knowledge and application of multiple perspectives should gradually clarify the conditions under which one approach can be seen as more useful than another approach. Finally, multiple perspectives provides a comparative approach that allows the research to be used across geographic and contextual boundaries.